Well, give me an alternate then. Go on. I said God. You give me an alternate.
What I'm doing is I'm looking at the evidence that we have at the moment and saying I don't know. What you're doing is, in my opinion, you're essentially making something up to give reason for what you think.
No, but you're saying something.
There's absolutely no evidence for it. So what I'm saying is I don't know. And what you're saying is I know, even though, in my opinion, you just have absolutely no evidence for it whatsoever.
Yeah, but when you say evidence, what exactly is it you're looking for?
Evidence.
Yeah, but even what is it you're looking for in order to come to a conclusion there is an uncaused cause? You can't just say scientific and try to say that is the way, my way or the highway.
I'm not standing here and saying you're wrong.
No, you said you're looking for evidence. So in order for you to...
I have no evidence to say this.
No, I'm not saying you have evidence or not. You're saying without evidence, I'm saying something. So ultimately it comes to the conclusion that you have a criteria that you're looking for. And what is this criteria?
I don't mean to be offensive, but I don't... We have fairy tale creatures.
Doesn't matter.
Why are they any different to the God you believe?
But what I'm saying is that
that's kind of how I look at it.
Trust me, not to be offensive to the atheists, but to me, anyone.
If I was atheist, I haven't got any reason to believe in a God because I've not.
I'm not saying I'm not saying your worldview is different to many of the atheists or agnostic even. What I'm saying is that to me, it is a fairy tale to believe that we came from nothing. In fact, that is a bigger fairy tale and something which I will not accept regardless of belief in science or not. But if you want to use intellect and if you want to use even the evidence that is present, yes, take the most minutest atom or maybe the galaxies or something like that. If anyone tells me that you do not see a design in that, you do not see somebody actually built that or modified it or brought it into existence and it's just popped out of nowhere, to me that is more unbelievable than an intelligent designer.
All you know is a dead religion.
You don't want to call him God, that's fine, call him intelligent designer.
But then where did he come from? He came out of nowhere then.
There you go, we already discussed this, remember? In order for you to avoid...
He or she, or whatever God is.
The only logical way for us to conclude that we exist, yes, and we are basically not in some sort of infinite loop of what created what, the only possible outcome, and I mean that both philosophically, intellectually, and even scientifically. No scientist will tell you that we came from nothing. You see what I mean? So the question goes back to, so if you're looking for God using the lens of science, then you're using the wrong tool. Because things about the spiritual world and metaphysical world, you cannot use something which is physical to identify that. So you're using the wrong tool in the first place. So for you to say I don't have evidence and you don't have evidence, your evidence suggests that...
I'm not going to stand here and say this is exactly what happened because none of us know.
No, but your evidence or your criteria that you're looking for is something that is physical to find out about the metaphysical. Isn't that using the wrong tool?
I'm just not going to stand here and say I know what happened, I know that this is exactly why we exist because I have no evidence to suggest that I do. So anyone that stands
you mentioned evidence again
and says this is how it was, I know everything.
No, you mentioned evidence again, but what is exactly you're looking for in order to find out there's a metaphysical world?
Scientific proof. That's how we live our lives.
You're using the wrong tool then.
Otherwise you're just standing up there.
Okay, let me ask you, do you have consciousness?
Define consciousness.
The fact that
I'm conscious, yeah.
You're conscious of what? That you exist?
Yeah, of my existence.
And you're certain about that?
No.
Why? Whom am I talking to then? If you're not certain about your own existence, whom am I talking? Why are you looking for God? I don't understand. If you are not even sure that you exist, then what science has concluded then based on your evidences that you're looking for? You don't even know that you exist. You see what I mean? So you see, the reason I asked you about consciousness is that because there's something called the hard problem of consciousness. You heard of that, yeah? From the scientists world. The reason they say that is because we all know we have consciousness. You cannot deny that. Yes? I exist, hence this is what consciousness basically is defined as. Now that is something which is immaterial, and there's no way science can find out about this immaterial world using the tools of science, because science, like you said, is what you observe, what you can measure, what you can see, these things, you know. So it's beyond the bounds of science, and you cannot use the tool of science which is limited in its ability to know about things which are immaterial, like even your own consciousness, let alone God Almighty.
Yeah.
So if anyone tells me that I know I am conscious, but I don't know if I exist, then they're not certain about themselves even. So everything you say is really meaningless because you don't even know if you exist. I'm just maybe talking to some atoms and molecules here. You see what I mean? You see?
I think you are actually. That's actually
Well, atoms and molecules will not have the consciousness which you do.
Because you've got the loaves and the fishes.
Because an atom by itself is unaware.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But you are quite aware. For example, if somebody wanted to hurt you, you will move away. But if there was a bunch of atoms, like for example, say a rock, yes? Do you think if we're going to hit the hammer, you'll realize that it's going to get hurt? So there I'm saying,
Okay.
if you're going to use the wrong tools to identify things, then you'll not identify them.
Okay.
And hence, to rely on just on science to know about the immaterial world is something which is illogical, which you'll never.
But I can't say.
You should not use that as criteria.
With conviction about things that I can't see and feel and touch and hear.
No, but you
I can't say anything about that with conviction.
Yeah, but there's something called deductive analysis. So, for example, if everything that you see around you has to come from somewhere, then it is only fair to say that it's not nothing. So you have two options: either it came from nothing or it came from something.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can give me a third alternative. Maybe it created itself. But if it's not conscious about itself even, how will it create anything? You see what I mean? So that is something which is logically impossible. Coming from nothing is also logically impossible. Because if it's nothing, then it doesn't even exist. It's just a concept. See what I mean? So what is the third alternative that's left? It has to be something. Do you agree?
And why is that God?
Well, you can, like I said, if you don't want to call,
What do you mean? What's the other alternative? It could be anything. Literally, what?
well, call it
why
what you
is it God?
call it what you want. Call it intelligent designer.
Exactly, call it intelligent
Yeah.
design.
If you don't like the term God, maybe it's got some baggage from an atheistic perspective, then you can call it what you want. But the important thing is to recognize that's
Can I ask you
something.
though, do you believe in one God or do you believe in multiple gods?
Oh no, that would be a contradiction as well to believe in multiple gods.
Okay, so you think that there are a number of different religions then?
Yeah, there are religions which believe in multiple gods,
And you think
but there are monotheistic religions which believe in only one God.
Okay, but
Again, the
do you
reason we
think
don't believe.
polytheistic religions are flawed.
Yes. Shall I tell you why? Because imagine if there are two gods, they're equally powerful. Yes?
Yeah.
Then who really calls the shots?
See, I'm struggling because if I'm born in one,
I'll tell you why. Imagine now the sun is going to set. The other god says, no, it has to rise. What happens?
Conflict.
And that's exactly, if you look at those religions which believe in polytheism, like Hinduism and the Greek gods, they always used to fight each other. Why they used
You
to?
have conflict.
No, because when you have conflict, then you have chaos. When you have chaos, then there is no order.
But there is chaos.
there is chaos. Yeah.
Well, chaos in the universe? Where? Give me one place where you see chaos. No, in the universe, what chaos do you see? I'm talking about the planets and the galaxies, yes? And the suns.
It's chaotic.
And the stars.
It's absolutely
I see
chaotic.
order, I don't see chaos.
No, it's absolutely
Look at the planets. Do they revolve around their own orbits?
Yeah, but even
Do they
though
crash into
That's,
each other?
that is science. We know why that is through science.
No, but is that chaos or is that order?
order to me.
Do
If
they
you looked at the solar system, it's completely chaotic.
Give me one example in the solar system that's chaotic.
The solar system that we live in is...
Give me one example that's chaotic. Go on. Anything that you see.
Listen, mate, I'm not an astrophysicist, okay?
Well, you made a claim.
The Brownian motion, right? That they talk about the movement of cells in the random order,
Yeah.
or movement of atoms.
Yeah.
That Brownian motion is chaotic.
But how is it, when you say chaotic, now there is different understanding of chaotic. So one chaotic, for example, take the cancer cells. Yes, they cause something which is negative, which is harmful to your body, or maybe something chaotic in the universe, like the black hole, for example. Yeah, it sucks up galaxies and stars and stuff like that. Now, when you say chaotic, maybe that is the
Chaotic is just
no,
randomness.
hear me out. Maybe the intelligent designer put these things which appear as chaotic to you, but they're not really chaotic. Yes, there might be reasons for that. But what I mean chaotic is like something random which has got no meaning at all.
Yeah, that's
But
what-
the reason the scientists are able to explain these things shows me that there is a reason behind it. There are physical laws which act upon it, which causes these things to happen. I don't see them as chaotic. I see that there is a reason behind everything. But if anyone says to me that all this came from nothing, to me that is a bigger fairy tale than any fairy tale you heard of.
That's why we have been redeemed.
So any scientist, if they tell you that, oh, we don't have evidence for God, then they're using the wrong tool. Because you're using a tool which can only measure the material world, and they're completely oblivious of the immaterial world.
Because the other issue is
No one can talk about the immaterial world with any form of conviction because no one has any idea.
Consciousness. I just talked about it. And you have an idea, but you will not realize that that is something which is immaterial, which you have it. It is only denial on your part if you think that doesn't exist. To me, consciousness exists, and you know it exists as well. So anyone who says that consciousness doesn't exist, you're not even aware of your own self, then to be honest with you, you're no different to a rock. Because the rock is not conscious, but you are.
I mean, a rock isn't a living species with organs.
Exactly. What defines it as non-living?
I think senses is
Yes.
what's missing.
You being sentient and the rock being non-sentient, yes, proves to us that there is a difference between the two. One has got consciousness and intellect and ability to have a conversation, for example, ability to move away from danger when they see it, ability to do things, to create civilizations. All this comes from nothing? No, there is something, even within your own self.
There was something. I'm just not standing here and saying God created that something.
Well, you give me an alternative. I gave you 3 options. Exactly.
I'm not going to stand here and give any answers because I have
let's say
no
we don't
fucking
use the word
idea,
God.
as does
Okay,
anyone
let's
else
say we
here.
don't use the
So
word
I'm not
God.
just going to
What
stand
do
here
you
and
have as
say
alternative?
this.
In that case, just say I don't know.
Exactly, that's what I do say.
Exactly, and
I
that's
don't
what you
stand
do.
up here saying this is exactly
But
what
you see,
happened, and I can tell you with
the reason I say God, maybe you don't like the term God, you can call it, like I said, intelligent designer. I see an intelligent design even in the smallest of cells, smallest of atoms, and the planets, the solar systems and the galaxies. I see a clear, a clear theme in these things, that something has designed this.
How do you explain something complex? How do you explain something which is
Do you have consciousness?
complex and it has...
Do you have consciousness?
that's
Do you have consciousness?
millions of years of evolution.
Do you have consciousness?
Millions and millions of years of evolution.
Do you exist? Do you think you exist?
Do I think I exist?
Yes.
Well, imagine if I had some sort of...
No, answer the question. Do you think you exist?
Imagine if I had some sort of a mental health problem and I thought that I was also a pony or a magical dragon.
Yeah.
I thought, I'm split into 2 things. Myself, the human being, and another magical dragon. And I can see you from 2 different angles.
Okay.
Does that mean that the magical dragon exists?
Okay, are you you have a mental disorder? You don't. Do you imagine dragons and ponies? No, you don't. But I'm asking you, look, I just asked you about your consciousness.
I can imagine
Do you think you exist or not?
I can imagine an intelligent designer, and that's
can?
the argument that you're making.
Okay, if you can imagine, then that's
The
fine.
argument does not hold weight.
No, it does. I'll tell you why. The reason you're not answering my question about your consciousness is because you know it exists, but you just don't want to admit it. Is that right?
No, you're wrong.
Okay, so do you?
want to answer
So answer the question then.
Well, I don't want to answer loaded questions.
Why is it loaded? Do you think my question was loaded? When I asked you about your consciousness, do you think it was loaded?
No, he was answering. So
The reason you don't want to answer it because you're in
You
denial.
only have a binary thought process. You can only think inside the box. You need to think outside the box.
Okay, think outside the box. Do you exist?
Answer my question then.
What is your question?
The magical dragon.
Okay, what about a magical dragon? I don't need to be mad to imagine a magical dragon. I can imagine it now.
Does it exist?
Of course it doesn't exist. That's why I call it an imagination.
It has a consciousness though.
Who, the dragon or you? The dragon has consciousness. Okay.
Because it would exist.
Does it even exist?
According to your argument.
Okay, wait. In order for you to imagine this dragon, hold on. Listen to my question first. Okay, you're jumping the gun. In order for you to imagine this dragon, do you need consciousness? There you go. You're in denial now. And that is exactly what I wanted to point out to you. Because look, a man, if he doesn't know if he exists or doesn't exist, then you got more to worry about than magical dragons, trust me.
Well, what about people that aren't well and everybody else is telling them that they should believe in certain things or they shouldn't believe?
Look, I'm not saying you should. I'm not saying you should. I will not force you to believe something that you don't want to. All I'm saying is that if you look around the world, yes, first question I'll ask you is, do you think it exists from nothing? The universe, do you think it came from nothing?
I don't think it's. I don't think that's an important question.
It's a very important
No one knows
question.
the answer to that question.
No. I'm not telling you. Look, at least I'm sure you must have thought about it. Yes? An intelligent person thinks many things, and one of the things that you would have asked yourself is, where did all this come from? Am I right? Now, it is not mad of anyone to ask this question. To me, it is a natural process for a human being, because we have the ability to think, and because we exist, the most important thing, yes, then you will ask these critical questions. Whether you get an answer, that's a different matter. But the important thing is that, so the question is, look, there are 3 options I gave this gentleman, which you can think of. You can add more if you want. Number 1, did it come from nothing? Number 2, did it create itself? Number 3, did someone create it?
I think it's because the universe,
you can add more if you want.
Because the universe at this point, I think we're at. I'm not an expert. I think the point in physics, we can actually look back and see the point at which the universe began, and I think they can do this. And they can also see
that wasn't my question.
Edge or the end of a universe that is infinitely expanding. So we can still see that
it's not infinite; it's finite, by the way.
How do you know the answer to that?
Because
where is your evidence for
that? After a period of time,
well, it's expanding, isn't it? So if it's expanding, it has to be finite.
The universe was contract. You have no evidence for it.
I just told you. Look, logically, think about this. What is infinite? Something that doesn't have an end. Right?
No, something that we...
Hold on, I'm talking to him, just 1 sec. If something is expanding, listen, if something is expanding, surely it's finite. Take a balloon, for example. You know, most of the scientists, they give you this example about the universe expanding. Exactly my point. So you have answered the question for me. Thanks.
That's at the edge of the universe.
Come off on a tangent.
No, it's not.
Yeah, we are.
No, it's not. So these 3...
After a certain period of time...
About the universe existing, first and foremost, my question wasn't how it began to exist. My question was, what brought it into existence? Nothing, something, or by itself?
Something.
If you want to add more, if you have no, always there. So
are very, very limited because we're bound by our perception.
Of course, it has to be. So there's always a limit to human thought. No, it's not limited.
Our perception, we can answer those perceptions.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I've given you these 3 options. You can add more. Hold on. You can add more alternatives. If you think mine are limited, hold on. If you think my questions are limited and narrow, please add more to it. I gave you these 3 options. The universe came from nothing, it created itself, or it came from something. If you think this is narrow and limited, please add more.
It just always existed.
Because maybe yours is more broader than mine.
It always existed.
If you can't think of more, then yours is no different to mine. Thank you.
It always existed. It's a 1 or a 0. Either something's there or it's not there.
Okay, so is the universe there?
Yeah.
Good. Where did it come from?
Where did it come from?
No one knows the answer to that question. That's
one attack. Where did it come? Sorry, what was the answer?
It could always just be there. Just like I'm always here, I'm here, I'm always here, I'm there. There might be many, many universes.
Do you know the problem with that?
They might float in and out of existence.
Do you know the problem with that?
That's a well-known, I think it's quantum physics.
No, it's not quantum physics. That's not quantum physics. Have you heard of infinite regress?
I've not heard of it.
Okay, that solution which you just mentioned, that it exists eternally, has an issue when you put in infinite regress. I'll give you an example of infinite regress. Infinite regress is, for example, something that has a series of things infinitely. For example, if you wanted to borrow a book in a library, and there were infinite number of people in front of you, would you ever get a book? Exactly. And that is the problem with an eternal universe. It wouldn't exist.
Right.
Because
by your calculations, by your technology.
I just give you the infinite regress, which you didn't know about.
Just like if I looked into the sky and I say, oh, well, that's an infinite distance.
My friend, this is...
If I build a machine that can look a lot further, my technology's improved, and then I can look further.
What if your machine was unable to look at even your consciousness?
But consciousness is a relative theory. We don't know.
A relative theory?
We don't know.
So you don't. Wait a minute. You think you don't have consciousness, or you do?
Yeah, but if my brain's destroyed, I don't know whether consciousness exists.
Exactly. Your brain has to be there for you to realize you're conscious.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So does it exist? Because you got a brain, I assume so.
I just gave you the argument there.
Because earlier he wasn't sure if you existed, and now he's saying it's related to the brain. So now you answered yourself.
Very loudly, and I don't think your argument. I don't see where your argument is here.
Okay, which part of my argument you didn't understand?
No, I just don't know what you're getting at.
What I'm getting at, look,
I'm saying I don't know the answer to these questions.
That's fine.
I'm not saying
that's fine with
someone didn't create the
Look, if you say I don't know, I'm okay with that.
So I can't stand here with
what happened? You backed out?
This is exactly...
Good thing you got a brain and you know you're conscious. He finally answered his own question. Good, no problem. Take care. Careful, guys. Okay. Look, all
regression apply to God as well?
No, it doesn't.
Why?
Because in order, the fact that we exist today shows us that there is not an infinite regress. There has to be an uncaused cause to have this existence.
The universe as well,
no, it doesn't, because the universe is not something that is sentient.
But we're sentient within the universe.
Yeah, but who caused the universe? You came after the universe or before? Exactly. So you see, the universe, for it to exist, has to have someone who brought it into existence. Yes, who caused
Not
it?
someone. Why someone?
Okay, something.
There you go.
You want to call it something?
There you go.
It's all about semantics with this guy. I don't know why.
You feel more comfortable just using certain words.
Exactly, semantics.
You don't like to use the word God, so what?
Something all powerful and all knowing.
You can call it powerful, all-knowing, no problem
I'm
with
not
me.
sure about that.
As long as you believe in that entity out there,
I'm not using
that's
anything.
fine.
I'm saying I don't know how we came into existence. I'm not saying someone made us or something made us. I'm just saying,
What is the alternative, my friend? What is the alternative? You tell me. I've asked you this several times now. The 3 points I mentioned, from nothing, from something, or from itself, yes, we can easily discount from nothing, because we know nothing cannot bring something into existence. Nothing doesn't even exist. It's just a concept.
There seems to be more certainty in what he's saying, as opposed to what you're.
It's called deductive analysis. So when you apply that, and this is a very scientific method, you know, because when they don't know something, they use deductive analysis themselves to come to certain conclusion.
If you put it into your third category, if it was something rather than say someone,
Yeah.
that's it. Then you're stuck.
No, I'm not stuck. I'm not, because that something has to be intelligent. That something has to be self-dependent, yes, and it cannot depend on anything else. It has to be the first cause. There's a lot of things, and all of that agree with God Almighty. So that's something which he doesn't want to call God. Is still an entity which is all-powerful, which has the ability to create. Has the ability to create.
Something has to be intelligent.
no, I'm not comfortable.
So it has to be unintelligent to create all this.
No, because
Seriously? In order for a child to draw even something simple, it requires certain level of intelligence.
this all comes
Yes?
from
Now we are
millions of
talking
years
about,
of
it
evolution.
doesn't, look, what do you mean evolution's got nothing to do with the universe? It came much later.
You were
The
talking
theory
about
of
children
evolution.
writing and stuff like that.
No,
That's evolution.
no. Evolution is something, doesn't mean that the children being able to draw is got to, how does it got to do with evolution? Why can't God
you were
create the
talking about something
ability?
being highly intelligent.
Why can't God create someone who's highly intelligent? Why do you need evolution? If God can create a
So
massive
you deny-
universe,
I'm not a biologist, but are you denying the existence of evolution as well?
no, I'm not denying. It's not an existence. It's a theory of evolution.
The theory, sorry.
Okay, the theory of evolution is what? It's basically, you know how many, there are many different theories of evolution. It's not just one. And the Darwinism has more or less now been negated by many of the scientists themselves. Yes? So for anyone, yeah, negated means they don't believe in it anymore. There are other theories which has actually trumped Darwinism a long time ago.
But other forms of evolution theory, right?
Yes, there are different. You know, the Big Bang theory, by the way, is one of the theories. There are many other theories how the universe came into existence. But all of them, they go back to this, what do you say, this singularity, that it has to appear from somewhere, but beyond that they cannot think. The reason is because, you know, science is dependent on 2 main factors, time and space. And without this, they cannot even postulate a theory, let alone look for evidence. Because if something doesn't exist even, how can they think that it has the ability to create something? So they cannot use nothing as the source of the universe. They cannot. Or the source of that singularity, beyond which you can find the natural laws, the physical laws, gravity, radiation, so on, you know. Because only after that point of the singularity, from which the Big Bang happened, apparently, based on what they tell us, beyond that they cannot think, they can only speculate beyond that. And to me, the only conclusive answer that I came to, yes, based on deductive analysis, is there has to be an intelligent designer.
But deductive analysis works on the basis of information you have. You may not have all the information.
Even then, nothing cannot create it. You see what I mean? Even with all the information available to you, you will not come to the conclusion that it comes from nothing.
We can take that one off.
But what created this fucking intelligent creator? Like, where does that come
There you go. You're going back to the infinite regress which we talked about.
But where does that come from?
Look, logically,
Where did this supreme being come from?
like I said, he's the first cause. The uncaused cause. Yes?
That doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything? Well, you give me an alternative then.
It just simply means that the one who caused it is not caused himself.
Exactly.
Right.
He is self-existent. But we gave the example earlier in the library. You know, if you're in a library, someone gives you a book, the lines are an infinite distance away. It's not possible for you to receive the book. It brings about so many mathematical problems. Even infinite regressive causes just cannot exist in the real world.
Can you answer
So how do you,
my question of where this...
Because you see, in order for you to get that book in the library, there has to be an end to that line. There has to be a limit to that line. And it has to start somewhere for you to get hold of a book. Because if there's infinite number in front of you, you will never ever get... The fact that we exist today, the fact that the universe exists today, shows us there has to be a starting point. And that starting
I don't
point...
know what that starting point is.
Yeah, and that's why I'm telling you that is where the intelligent designer has, because that's
I'm not sure.
that's the only logical way for you to understand where we all came from, because there's no alternative unless you can tell me.
But that's the whole issue, is that there's certain information we don't understand right now. People bring up quantum physics a lot, but because basically it's an area of physics we don't understand, and there's certain observations we see there, i.e. an electron appearing in two places at one time, or being one electron affecting another when there's no connection. We just do not understand.
That's fine. Maybe we don't understand that.
Yeah. But it's the same thing as saying that, look, we don't understand right now how something can come from nothing. We don't understand how one electron can affect another electron when there's no connection.
That's logically and scientifically impossible.
Even two things are having this being at the same place.
You're basically telling me that
scientifically
you're basically telling me there's something called a married bachelor.
But based on logic,
you see what I mean?
Where did the supreme creator come from? That's what I want.
Well, logic and science is based. The source of logic and science is the supreme creator. Because you give me an alternative, where did it come from? The natural laws, for example. Yes?
But the laws don't always work. At a quantum level, they don't work.
No. It's not they don't work, it's because you don't understand it yet. There's a big difference.
So then
my friend. You know, there were times when people used to say that no one can go to the moon. It's completely madness if anybody thinks that. It's a fairy tale. But today, it's not a fairy tale anymore. You see what I mean? But if anybody tells me back then or today that we all came from nothing, to me that is the biggest fairy tale.
I think a lot of people like myself, I agree with the concept of the first cause, right? Because there must have been something to start something, right? And whether it's whether you call it a supreme being or anything else. My problem is when you now get further down the line to give this first cause, to say it's a him, to say it has attributes and what attributes it has,
even if we start
and it wants desires,
like,
wants,
is it intelligent? Right?
Is it intelligent? Exactly. Like, how do we get all of those things? How do we get the attributes?
Because look, the attributes, for example, if this intelligent being has created all of us, then this intelligent being is able to communicate with us.
All we're saying is the first cause kick things off.
Okay, first cause, that's it.
Look, if anyone says the first cause is not intelligent, yes, then you got to realize, then what is it? Is it even something that is sentient? Forget about intelligent. Is it even sentient?
Is it sentient?
Yeah, and if it is sentient, then is it able to create this universe with these functionalities of the physical laws and everything?
It can process to kickstart this, maybe, but it doesn't.
But to me, that requires more intelligence than even someone who maintains.
You can accidentally start a chain reaction.
So give me an example of a chain reaction that has got no cause.
No.
It has to have a cause.
No, I'm saying the whole issue is that we agree there's something in the beginning.
Yeah.
The attributes of that something is what gets questioned. Is it intelligent and so on?
No, but like I've already answered that question. I said if the intelligent being created this universe with such design, to me it's mind-blowing when you look at it, even the tiniest thing in the universe, or even the largest thing in the universe that we know of. To me it's mind-blowing.
You're just seeing the chain reaction.
No one can explain that all this came from just from a chain reaction or an accident. We see a particular design, a particular blue map in there, in all of these things, that this is something which not only has a purpose but has a designer behind it as well.
What they're saying basically is that we have the hurricane in the desert.
Yeah, and build a jumbo 747 or something.
No, it's not. This is even more intelligent.
We're saying that's a possibility, but I think what you're saying is yours is it 100%? Is it certain?
Yes.
What you're saying is that you have certain proof.
I have no other.
They're saying they don't really know.
I have no other explanation besides the intelligent designer designing all this. And the reason I call it intelligent designer is because this doesn't appear without intelligence. Yes?
That's questionable.
Why is it questionable? Okay, you know a fly.
It's amazing.
Wait, a fly is so small. And if you look at, it is, in fact, science actually enables me and it strengthens my faith.
I'm not denying
because it's able to look at something to that level which we are unable to look before. You see what I mean? So every time science actually strengthens my faith when I look at the discoveries of science. The reason they're called discoveries and not inventions shows that they existed already. All we have to do is discover it.
Look, that we completely agree with, right?
Yeah.
And even like the Quran says, look to horizon and you will learn, and it proves itself, right? So the more you basically observe the world, the more you learn.
It encourages you to observe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So if you look at the early Muslims, who are not only scientists and philosophers and thinkers, yes, the reason, what really propelled this movement and kind of this zeal was the religion itself, was the belief in God itself. Now, can you imagine the early Christian scientists who were killed and murdered because they thought, no, they're going against the will of God? Yes, look at the contrast between two. Islam encourages you to look at the world around you and to question it.
But what I'm saying is, it requires
and to ponder on it.
It does require a leap of faith.
There has to be. Look, even for you to believe that your dad is your dad requires a leap of faith. Yes, unless everyone has done a DNA test.
Of course.
So we have to believe in something called testimony. You go to the doctor here, it requires a leap of faith, unless you have checked his credentials. You see what I mean? Just because he works in the NHS, you think, yes, there's a reliable institute, so I should believe in my doctor because the NHS says so. So you see, testimony is a very important element in our, system, in our civilization.
Maybe you can leap of faith then, that is the first cause, and this first cause is an intelligent being who created us.
Yeah, and who communicates to us. I told you already several times, but you're stuck in one position. I don't know. How many times have I told you that intelligent designer is not only able to design this thing, but is able to create us, also intelligent beings, and communicate with us. Why is that so impossible? If you created a robot who has got artificial intelligence in its system, are you not able to communicate with it? In order for it...
I don't know where this supremely intelligent thing came from.
Came from nowhere, because
it
by itself, no, not created itself, it is eternal. If you can imagine a being who doesn't need a creator, who is not dependent on anyone or anything, yes? Yeah. Why is that so difficult? Because the only explanation which will stop you from this problems like infinite regress is such a being. Unless you guys can give me alternatives.
I think you already answered this, but you're saying the universe can't be eternal because it doesn't have intelligence, whereas the creation...
No, the universe cannot be eternal because A, it is not sentient to create itself.
It's not sentient.
That is one. Second, you have a problem with... We know how old the universe is, yeah? They tell us it's 14.56 billion years old. We know it started somewhere, so it has a beginning.
No, but you don't know if the singularity is the start of the universe. That's the only point. Because it could be expanding, contracting.
No, even then, you have the infinite regress. I gave you the issue about the infinite regress.
But that's why I bring it back to the internality of it. So basically you're saying, again, it goes back to, if we agree there is something at the start, then one of the key elements for you, one of the key attributes, it needs to be sentient. Otherwise it has a...
It has to be intelligent. Sentient, obviously, means it's self-aware. Yes? Now, the universe, do you think the universe, the planets are self-aware? Do you think the stars are self-aware? Exactly. So I don't know what part of universe you're talking about, because you cannot talk... To me, the universe is a collective of so many things, including us. And we came much later. So if it existed 14.5 billion years ago, or started to exist from then it has a starting point. To me, if anything, there's a starting point and I know the universe will end one day as well. Yes? So if it has a start and an end, to me that is something which is not only finite.
How do you know the universe will end?
Because everything ends. Everything ends. Except God Almighty.
The sun is depleting, so in itself...
No, wait.
But that's not the universe.
That's not the universe, that's the solar system.
But what I'm trying to say is that...
The universe is a system. If it started...
We don't have any idea.
You know, there are many theories that because it's expanding, one day it will collapse. And these are scientifically attested theories. Because to me it's finite. Yeah, of course. So is the evolution a theory. A theory doesn't mean it's wrong. By the way, I'm not one of those guys who says it's a theory. Oh, so let's put it aside. A theory is just a way of deductive analysis and thinking that they come to this. A theory, yeah, exactly. A theory has to be proven false, not that it exists, that is proven true. In order for it to be negated, it has to be falsified. You're right, yeah. And that's the reason I tell you the theory of evolution are many, and many have been falsified. including Darwinism. Anyway, look, unless you can give me any other alternative to these three possibilities of how the universe came into being, then we can talk further. But to me, this matter is very clear. It cannot exist by itself. It cannot be created from nothing. And
why can't it exist on itself?
Because it doesn't.
That your supreme or your intelligent designer did create itself.
Is the universe intelligent?
How do I can't tell you.
Well, you asked the question. You should know.
I have no answers. That's why I'm saying.
Well, the answer is. In fact, he already asked this question earlier.
No,
I said in order for it to be intelligent, first thing it has to be sentient. Yes, it has to know it exists even.
No. Why does it?
Does the universe know it exists?
Sorry.
Does the universe know it exists?
We've been through this. Maybe you were not listening. Was that?
Does God know He exists?
Of
course He does. Because He's self-aware.
We have been through this already.
How do you know that?
So what's the difference?
Where's your evidence for that?
The evidence.
How do you know that God is self-aware?
The evidence is the universe itself. Do you think something that is unaware can create something like the universe? Can create you who can be self-aware?
If you made that camera, that means you're aware of making the camera, right?
Yeah.
So if God created the universe, then He must be self-aware.
But that's assuming the Earth,
Not
the
necessarily.
universe was created.
You can
What?
throw
Does
a
it
ball
exist?
and you can hit somebody in the head. You're not aware.
Does it
of
exist?
But you're aware you threw the ball.
But was it created?
Answer the question. Does it exist?
Was it created?
I will come to that. But first,
You want to put me into inside.
why do they always get defensive and ask such questions? I don't know why. I'm trying to what?
They tried to set up a trap for you.
Do you feel trapped? I'm sorry if you got trapped.
If I trapped you, if we trapped you, sorry, man.
Don't trap me at all.
All I'm saying is,
What are they going to gain? What are they going to
yeah, what are
Oh,
you
they're
gonna
going to gain a believer and
Nothing.
alhamdulillah and whatnot, bro. What are you talking about? Listen.
But why you're so defensive? Why don't you talk to me?
It's not a matter of...
Let him finish.
If you don't even know it exists, then there's no point talking about intelligence, is there? Let's start with the basics first. If it exists, then we can talk about whether it's sentient or not. But if you don't even know it exists, then it's pointless to talk about that.
Do you exist?
Okay? So it's not to put you in any wrong way or to create a trap for you, like the way you alleged. I'm sorry if you felt that way.
I'm going to steal it from you. I'm not going to steal it from you.
No,
First cause, yeah.
Okay, then let's go from there. Go on. He's
No, wait.
accepted the premise of first.
yeah, but we have already discussed this, and that's what I'm
Does that
saying.
first cause have to be intelligent? I'm not sure. I agree.
That's where we're stuck.
No, it's not stuck. To me, if someone is a creator of anything, it has to have intelligence.
No, but
A creator is.
Yes, a creator of anything, be it a robot, be it a small, I don't know, frisbee or something. It has to have certain level of intelligence. To me, the universe is so complex, yes, that we have not even explored maybe a fraction of it. Forget the universe, take the oceans. You know, they say we have only explored a fraction of the ocean. We have only explored a fraction of the ocean, let alone the universe.
What's intelligence? Move past that. Maybe you accept this one.
do it.
Okay, so just a 1% chance.
There's a chance.
Yeah, no.
Okay, but could you
My
explain
question to you is that, and it might be moving too far too quickly, but I'm saying that the God that you are worshipping is the first cause, right?
Yeah.
But how do you know that that God that you are worshipping is the first cause?
That's the only,
How do you know that?
because that is the only way that I can conclude conclusively that without this first cause.
Yeah, but your God.
I'm answering, my friend. I'm answering. If you let me finish.
Continue.
Because you remember earlier I gave you the three options. Either we came from nothing, or the universe created itself, or there is something. To me, that something has to not only be self-aware, yes, has to be intelligent, yes. The reason, not because I say, because for you to create even the minutest thing that you're wearing right now requires certain level of intelligence. To me, this universe is so complex that this is beyond your imagination even. And if that being who created all this is not intelligent, then you guys are thinking from some other perspective to a normal perspective.
Maybe our understanding of that word intelligence might differ. For example, if I just...
What's your understanding?
No, I'm just saying, I'm going to give an example. If I just threw something on the ground and it formed into
Don't give me
a
fairy,
lovely picture.
don't give me fairy tales.
Not fairy tales. If I threw something on the ground, for example, would that be classed as intelligence because it created something that is useful?
Yes.
Okay, so then we can...
Shall I tell you what?
I'm not saying it's...
Wait. First and foremost, you said two things.
Yeah.
You said something that you created using what?
Something that
Using
I've
what?
proved.
Using paint?
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Where did the paint come from?
Paint. I don't know.
Exactly. Someone must have created it, right?
Okay.
So it didn't come from nothing.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, no
And that is why I always go back to, doesn't matter what raw material you use,
Yeah.
it cannot exist by itself.
That's fine.
You know there are,
We're happy with.
you know, if you look at an atom, yes, honestly, like I said, every time I look at the minutest things in the universe, to me it points to a fact that it has been designed by someone or something. Yes, no one can deny. And science, as I told you earlier, has actually strengthened my belief in this intelligent designer.
Sure.
Yes, everything I look at, whether it's a minutest thing or the macro or the micro things that I look at, everything points to one thing, that there is someone behind this. It didn't come into existence by itself. Now, you ask me, how do you know it's intelligent? My answer is this. Even for you to create the minutest thing, be it by accident, like in the case of a painting you want to create, yes, an abstract painting, and there are many, in fact, there are many people who do this. You know, they do this for a living. But to me, they require this raw material to bring this into existence. For you, you require your arms and your limbs to do that. So all this requires, yes, not only intelligence, but it requires something that was created by an intelligent being.
I
On that logic, I'm struggling to find where this intelligent being that could create all this.
Where or how?
I mean, I'm just really struggling to see where this intelligent being or entity came from.
I told you, self-existing. How many times I told you this?
Self-existing.
Yes.
So now I'm thinking, why isn't the universe self-existing? You were saying
Because
sentient.
the not only that it's not sentient, we know it began. We know this. Scientists tell us this. They even tell us the age of the universe, for God's sake. So you cannot tell me it doesn't have a beginning. It definitely has a beginning. Everything that you see, that you
the
know.
universe has a beginning. Is there evidence?
Well, the scientists tell us this.
I
They give us the singularity. They give us the Big Bang. Many things that they point to, which shows us that it began. In fact, one of the main things they give us.
Did it begin? Are we sure of that?
Yeah. They use radiation, for example.
Where is the evidence for that?
They use radioactive material.
Sure, that's not the.
accepted university, but just listen to the point.
If anyone tells me the universe did not begin from a scientific perspective, then they need to provide me evidence why they feel that way. Because in order for you,
I don't have any answers.
well, the scientists tell us how old it is, which tells
The
us what?
universe.
That it is finite. Yes, they do. 14.8 billion or something years. They do give us the time. You know how they managed to give us the time? Because they say that when the singularity, when the Big Bang happened, yes, it threw out some radiations, it threw out some gravity, it threw out some certain, yes. So by using this radiation, they're able to tell how old the universe is. Well, it had a beginning, of course.
There's something that sits outside the universe, that means.
Say again?
That means there's something that sits outside the universe.
What is the evidence for that?
But I'm saying that.
To me, that is a fairy tale.
Really? So
Unless you believe in God.
Yeah, I'm saying exactly. And that something isn't the first cause, which is God, that sits outside the universe, that started the universe.
My friend,
created it.
the universe didn't even exist for God to sit outside it. The universe was created by God.
Of course.
So does that answer your question?
Yes. So the God is.
I don't know what you mean by outside the universe. Because the universe is a concept, which means everything that you know of, everything you can imagine, everything you can think from a scientific perspective, that is the universe.
Okay.
Okay? So when you say, wait, when you say outside the universe, what do you mean by it?
So are you saying God?
No, answer the question.
So
Are you saying God is part of the universe?
Look, what you're doing now, you're mixing two things.
About intelligent designer.
One at a time. You're thinking both material world and the immaterial world. Now, okay? First and foremost, do you believe there's an immaterial world?
Do I believe there's an immaterial world? You're going to have to define that.
Okay, do you know what's a material world?
No. A world where there are things, objects, right? Material. Immaterial is things like.
Also, you know about it. So why is it no then?
I was unsure. I had
He's
to think
unsure,
about
and
it.
you can't say
Because
with any
you're
evidence
quiet
that it exists
Russia.
either.
You're very quick.
I'm very slow.
Okay, that's fine. So once again, do you believe in a
material?
Yeah, a material world.
A material world, yes, because I.
Good.
Absolutely.
Good. Do you believe in an immaterial world?
An immaterial world.
I'll give an example if you remember.
I'm unsure. I'd like an example.
I'll give an example of immaterial world. Remember?
Yeah, go on, run it over us again.
Do you have consciousness?
Yes.
Is it material or immaterial?
I'll say immaterial.
Why would you say immaterial?
Because it's not something that I can touch.
Good. Does it exist?
Yeah, I believe it exists, yes.
Good. There we go. So your immaterial world is such that is inside you,
Yes.
and you cannot prove that with science. You know why?
Yes.
Because the science is limited.
Okay.
Science can only observe the material world. It is a wrong tool to use for the immaterial world. Hence, anyone says I need evidence to see God.
Yes.
Yes, they're using the wrong tool.
I understand where you're coming from. Yes.
I mean, wrong tool in the sense that if they're going to use science as a tool.
Yes.
Can't argue with that.
Yes, no, but we're getting up to the outside.
That's why, you know, that's why they call it.
Yes.
That's why they call it the hard problem of consciousness.
Oh, I understand.
Because it's really a hard problem. They cannot imagine it.
Yeah.
They cannot think it, but they know they got it.
You're making good sense, but I feel like I'm asking a reasonable question at least.
No, of course, I never said your question is unreasonable.
Even without some knowledge, would ask if the universe did say begin, and it had to begin from somewhere. This something that began the universe cannot be part of the universe they began, right?
I never said it's part of the universe.
Exactly. So that's what I meant.
In fact,
it's outside the universe.
Yeah.
I may have used the wrong terminology.
Fair enough.
But it
Fair enough.
exists not in the universe.
And I did answer your question. I said God existed before the universe existed.
Yes.
So that answers your question already.
That answers it, exactly.
Yeah, of course it does.
So we have to. So then, what is this? Someone might ask, what?
I still don't know what's your
place?
problem.
Someone might ask, what is this? What is this place?
Place. It doesn't. There's no time and space. There's no space.
Without the universe.
Space itself was created by God. Space itself was created by God.
So just. If I use any word, thing, time, place, I mean, when you describe God, people use he or she. I'm just talking.
We don't believe in he and she God. We don't give genders to God in the sense that you think.
I understand, but it's hard for me. That's why I said I'm using thing or place, because it's hard for me to. It's like you describing God.
Well, let's call it the intelligent designer. We call it.
Let's, where can we call this realm? That sits outside the universe before the universe existed. What definition can I give it to me as a layman who doesn't know how to describe it?
Oh, even I don't know, because this is something for a normal person. We cannot imagine this because this is something beyond our scope.
I see.
All right. Okay. So for me to imagine God is beyond my scope. To me to imagine where God was, how He was before this universe or even after is beyond my scope.
He's referring to it as a he, by the way.
Yeah, I know. That's what it is. Because you can't without.
You know why we use he? Because in Arabic, I'll tell you why. In Arabic, there is no it. So that's the reason in the Quran, Allah says huwa. Yes? Allah la ilaha illa huwa. Except he. Because by default, if there is no neutral gender like it in Arabic, the default is a he. That's the reason we use he.
Sure.
Does that make sense? And is it, by the way, it's the same in the Semitic languages, in Hebrew as well, in Syriac as well. That's the reason we use he. Does that make sense? But Allah doesn't have the gender like the way you think as a he or a she.
No, I don't.
We don't believe, and we also know that the term Allah itself is only used for the Almighty God. It cannot be used for the false gods or something like that. But the term God and the term goddess and the term gods, you see how they use differently for interchangeable things? But the term Allah is unique and applies only to the Almighty God.
There isn't one.
So we don't believe. The reason we don't say that God is something that we define by our imagination is because Allah Himself says in the Quran that لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ. There is nothing like unto Him. Meaning that every creation that you know of or can imagine or can think, He's unlike that.
Okay.
And that's the reason you won't find pictures of Allah in the mosque or with ourselves. Because if something is beyond your scope, beyond your understanding, beyond your even your comprehension, then it is something that you don't speculate about. Yes, but we know that. Look, we also believe in something which is quite important that we haven't discussed: is the life after death.
Okay, life after death.
Again, yeah.
Now, this might seem a bit weird to many people who haven't even thought about God. The reason for that is because you see,
I've thought about God.
You have?
Well, I've thought about it, and I've concluded in my head that, as we've spoken about, I don't have any basis to go on.
Fair enough, because you were using the wrong tool. You were using science to look at the immaterial world, to look at the metaphysical world, and that's the reason you're unable to find it. But if you come to a conclusion based on your rationality and your what do you say, your intellect, and you use this deductive analysis to come, look, that is the only way. Doesn't matter how improbable it seems to you now, but if that is the only conclusion you're going to reach, and that is the only probable way you're going to have the universe existing today, then you should accept
through
it.
This conversation so far, for me, I have, and already, I accept the first cause. Yes, I've accepted the first cause.
Okay. So you're an agnostic, not a...
Oh, of course.
Not an atheist?
I accept the first cause.
Okay, good.
And then that the first cause is intelligence. There's a lot to think about there for me, but I feel like I accept that this... it is intelligent. Even if you, for example, the paint argument, there's some intelligence there.
Of course there is.
It's just a word, but...
So you accepted already the fact that there is an intelligent being, and there is a first cause. Alhamdulillah. You see, that's a very good start.
But this I can't say, but I cannot extrapolate.
So what is the next? What is the next issue?
What's the next step? Exactly. Yes. Where do you go from there? Because I cannot extrapolate the desires and the wills of this first cause. This intelligent being.
Now that is a good
what
question.
They are,
fair enough.
They want, all these other things, the attributes that come with
then
the
comes
cause, communicating with the first
I totally agree. So this tsunami of questions, once you realize there is a first cause and an intelligent being, yes, the next question you need to ask yourself, is an intelligent being able to communicate with you?
That's a question.
What would you answer? If you know he's intelligent, no, I'm not saying, I'm not asking you to give me a definitive answer. All I'm asking you is it possible for the intelligent designer to communicate with his creation?
Reasonable question. I'm thinking about it.
I would say yes. Is that a reasonable answer? I would say yes. Would that be a reasonable answer?
It would be reasonable, but I'd ask why reasonably.
Well, why? Because if he has created intelligent beings like us, then it's important for us to know why we are created. The philosophical question: why do we exist? You know, what is the purpose of our existence? You know, even the smallest item today, even the smallest insect today has a purpose. Do you think beings like us who have created civilizations, let alone read and write books and so on, we will not have a purpose? Seriously?
I ponder this.
Yeah, so you see, if he's able to communicate with us, then we have to have information. We have to look for what this communication is. And the Muslims will point you to the Quran. Now it is for you to go and look at the Quran and to read it and say, would an intelligent designer, would such a being write such information and give us such information and teach us about things which are unknown to us before and became known to us later on? Yes, remember I asked you about, you must have pondered about what would happen to you after death. By the way, that is one thing which everyone will have to accept as a fact, whether you believe in God or not.
My most plausible solution to that is...
Sorry, to what?
My most plausible solution to that, in my head, what I believe, is the only plausible thing that could happen to us after we die is how we were before we were born.
How do you mean?
I.e. abyss of nothingness. That's my only plausible answer.
Before you were born, you were nothing?
So before I was born, I have no recollection of anything. It was essentially an abyss.
Right.
Nothingness.
Yeah. You don't have any recollection?
Alive.
Okay.
I'm now alive.
Yeah.
So I have consciousness, I'm sentient. When I die, my only plausible thing that I can come to after life is how it was before.
Fair enough. You know what you have just defined?
Yeah.
It's from purely a materialistic perspective. And I don't blame you for that, because that's what you have been basically oriented with so far. Yes?
Well, that's just me thinking independently. I'm not.
Of course, no.
Me to think
but that's a natural way for you to come to a conclusion from only a materialistic world. What if I told you your consciousness, your soul existed before you were born?
I would disagree with that, because I have absolutely no.
Would you disagree, or would you say I don't know?
But then you have to ask what's the soul. What do you mean? I don't know.
Yeah, what is the soul?
Confused when you say is your consciousness?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that your
yes, what is your consciousness?
I was not conscious before I was born.
How do you know that? How do you know that?
I just know that.
Because you don't remember it, or you don't know?
Wait, what's the link with this?
I know that.
With there being,
okay. Anyway, here is a postulation. Something called the Pascal's wager. I don't know if you heard of it. Have you heard of it? No? Okay, so basically it works like this. Imagine a world where there is nothing. Let's say you don't believe in God, and after you die, there is no such thing as God. You just perish, like the way you said.
Yeah.
Yes. You are born with from nothing, and you end up nothing from your materialistic perspective. Yes. Let's say that is one. That is one option. Yes. Now we flip it on its head and look at the other option. That when you die, you realize that there is an alternate world, there is a life after death, and there is God, most importantly. Now take both of these two scenarios. As a believer in God, yes, and as someone who doesn't believe in God, who's taking a bigger gamble? Remember, I as a believer, shall I tell you why it's a gamble? Because I as a believer worked for the next life, because I know I'll be accounted for on the day of judgment. Hear me out. And you, let's say there's no God, yes, for the sake of argument, and let's say there's no life after that. Have I lost anything?
No, the biggest gambler is the
You see what I mean by gamble now?
The biggest gambler is the person who doesn't follow God and follow the religion and worship believe in God, right?
No. You didn't understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
It's not only about believing in God.
Yes.
It's about what will be the consequence of someone who does not believe in God at all.
They'll go to hell, right?
You believe that they will go to a hell, and you believe that non-believers will suffer for the rest of eternity.
Yeah. Shall I tell you why I believe that? Okay. First and foremost, look. Let's understand the fact as to what are the consequences for the disbeliever. Not only that they will suffer for eternity, which might seem very harsh, but since you don't even believe in it, for you it might be irrelevant. But my question, the reason I asked you about this Pascal's wager, and who is taking more of a risk?
The atheist is
yes,
taking a risk.
Yes, exactly. They're taking a huge risk, because you see, this world that we live in is temporal. It's something which will perish one day. It's something which will come to an end one day.
Sure.
But you see, the world which is going to come, which is the real world to me as a believer, is something which is not coming to an end. The reason we have to prepare for this, which is actually a test, the reason we are given a limited time in the test is for a reason. Because obviously if it's unlimited, then it wouldn't really be a test, would it? Yes, we are limited beings, we have limited time in this world, and we are given a test to prove to God, to prove that whether we believe based on all the evidences around us, based on all our observations, based on our intellect, our logic, and everything that defines us.
Yes.
Why have you rejected God? That is a question I will ask to you as a person. And secondly, why would you take...
rejected God, sorry.
Yeah. The second question I would ask you is that why would you put your afterlife, yes, at a risk when you know that there is a possibility? Yes, because if there is no God, no afterlife, then you really shouldn't be worried as a believer. You shouldn't really, because all that's going to happen to me as a believer is that, I led this life based on certain morals defined by God Almighty. Like, for example, as a Muslim, I don't drink, I don't gamble, I don't play, I don't basically eat certain food, yes, or drink certain drinks and so on. So these things to me are actually good, because today the main cause of many of the family breakups and many of the issues with many problems in the society, and also much of the expenses today in the NHS is because of either drink driving or certain indirectly related to alcohol, or maybe through gambling or something like that. And if anything thinks objectively, they'll realize that these things which are forbidden are not really that bad, because at the end of the day, the government hasn't banned this is because they are getting something out of it. They're getting revenue from it. Yes? So if you look at the VAT on these drinks and tobacco and the gambling, man, it's massive. So they're getting something that lines their pockets. So they don't care about what really the consequences of drinking alcohol and gambling are in the society. Yes? But you see, what is at the heart of Islam, which is the betterment of not only the individual, but the society as a whole. So even though you might not be drinking, but if someone who actually drinks knocks you down, yes, who's ultimately to blame? Not only that person, but the drink that he was allowed to have in the first place.
I can agree.
But if you nip it in the bud, it shouldn't be allowed, it should be prohibited, it should be banned. Then you see it will solve so many problems in society today.
It could, but you don't even need to explain it. The bottom line is you don't lose. The bottom line is, even if it didn't lead to the betterment of society, you don't lose, because even if you die and it's true, well, at least you don't go to the hellfire. But my issue is that how can you not take that risk if you do not believe in the first place? It is not a risk.
What do you mean, how you could not take the risk?
You cannot choose sometimes.
If you don't believe in God, you're taking a risk.
Yeah, but the thing is that it's a belief, right? You need to be persuaded by this belief. I cannot just say today, I'm a Muslim, walk around, but I don't actually believe in God. I don't actually believe that.
Why call yourself a Muslim then?
You have to really believe it in order to sacrifice a lot of your life worshipping.
But you see, look, again it comes down. No, remember I told you earlier, how would you know that this intelligent being, what does he want, expect of us? And I said, if he's able to communicate to us, with us, then he'll tell us what he expects of us. You see what I mean? So it's not something, we don't just believe in blind faith. No, it's not a blind faith. This faith is very much rooted in the Quran and in the Hadith that we believe are the sources from the intelligent being.
But we need to believe to be a Muslim is what I'm saying.
Of course you need to. Why would you call yourself Muslim then? If you don't believe.
So it's not simple.
Call yourself an atheist or an agnostic or whatever you want.
Look, it's lovely, you're right.
A Muslim by definition is someone who actually acts upon the will of the Creator. So he submits to the will of the Creator.
This is sourced in the Quran.
Yes. And the Quran is for us, a Quran is something which is a source that we know is communicated from the Almighty itself. Because one of the things.
How do you know that?
So there are certain. No, that's fine. There are certain things which are like an acid test in the Quran. So Allah tells us that if this book is from other than Allah, then surely you'll find contradictions in it. To this day, no one has found, who had looked at it objectively, yes, no one has found contradictions. Because many things have been said about the future, yes, and about things which are considered scientific today, and about things which we didn't know about back then today. Yes, and this all goes back to something that was revealed to a person who was unlettered. And today the Arabic that we know of today, it takes its source from the Quran. Can you imagine someone like Shakespeare is unlearned and he creates a play which is appreciated in all the English speaking world, yes, as being the best prose or the best plays out there. Now if anyone tells them that Shakespeare wasn't learned at all, that's unbelievable. How could he write such a thing? You know, that's exactly what the Arabs used to say when they first heard the Quran. And these Arabs are not some nobodies. Yes, they were the best in terms of the prose and the poetry in that time. And when they used to hear these things, they say, this is not a human source.
So what? I mean, what does it mean?
What does it mean is that, to me, look, he asked me, how do you know this is from God? I told you that, go and look at it, because unless you look at it, you won't understand it. All I'm asking is, keep an open mind, like the way I looked at Christianity, I looked at other religions, I looked at books about socialism and science and so on. You see, God has given a mind, so use it. You know, don't be close-minded. That's all I'm saying.
100%.
And that is healthy for anyone. So anyway, thanks for your time, guys. But all I'm asking is, have an open mind, try to read about Islam. Would you like a Quran if I give it to you, free of charge? Or you?
It's like,
and the offer is open to anyone who wants one.
I have one.
You have one? MashaAllah. What's your name, brother?
My name is Peter.
Peter, and you are? James. I'm Hashim. Very nice discussing with you. But if you want a Quran, I'll give it to you one. Yeah, inshallah. You got a copy of the Quran?
The Mormon, I have every book. But it's good.
Yeah, it's good to discuss because, you know, we learn from each other.
Of course.
Yes. Can you get James for a Quran, inshallah? Yeah? Thank you very much. Yes. Yes, there's no doubt in it. Yes.
And in the meantime, says you get one surah, you cannot, not today, not tomorrow, not ever.
I gave them one acid test.
Get me one author that they say, this book, there is no mistake.
IslamNet is establishing the first of its kind mega mosque, think about that, and Dawah Center in Norway. If you donate to support this cause on behalf of your parents, Allah will inshallah build a home for them in Jannah. Because the Prophet Muhammad said, whoever builds a mosque for Allah, Allah will build a house for him in Jannah. So you can inshallah help your parents earn the eternal home in paradise right now by clicking the link below.